This morning's talk is about being our brother's keeper. And we could write that word keeper with a little k or a big K, capital K. This morning on my way over here, driving over to Isvara, keep in mind, we live in a very small community. And I was going down a side street and saw this little boy. He must have been 4 years old, tops. And he was sitting there in the street alongside the curb, and he had a remote control in his hand. And I looked to see what was he using it on, and here's this little car going across the street over into the neighbor's yard across the street. He was so excited. He was by himself. I don't know where Mommy and Daddy were, but they weren't there. But he was in sheer joy and bliss and in his own world of imagination. And you know, I thought about brother's keeper, that, you know, nature was there, his imagination was there, I was there, and it was just a special moment, you know, just priceless. Why? Because today's life is so busy. Kids are in the house, or they're looking at their iPad, even at that age. They have iPads, and their heads are always down, you know, in some electronic device. Well, he had a little electronic device, but he was outside, and he was having such a good time. Anyway, it was a joyful moment. Also, I wanted to talk a moment about a friend who is perhaps, and certainly was, my own brother's keeper, and the brother's keeper of many of us around the world today. His name is Daniel Anton. Today is Daniel's birthday, and I just wanted us to take a moment to remember him. We will be celebrating his life a week from tomorrow at the museum, the Rourke Museum in New York City, with his memorial service. But today would have been his birthday, in his 90s. And he was such a cherished soul. So I was thinking about even Facebook in relationship to Daniel and email. And he was on the internet and on his computer all the time. And once, he also had an iPad. He was one of the first people to have an iPad. And he taught me how to use my iPad. And I was thinking, what a wonderful time to be alive. Because we have international communication now in seconds. That used to take 6 months to a year to get a letter from Europe to the United States, or vice versa. And so Daniel, you know, we were in really nice, close communication with each other. But that was not extraordinary. Like someone on our White Mountain Isvara site in the Agni Yoga Living Ethics community posted her communications with him, and how he had this ability to make us feel so special that we were the only one in the world, that we were his best friend. You know, that's what it means to be a brother's keeper. So I just wanted to take a moment here to close our eyes, send our love to him, and then we'll move on with this morning's talk. So let's just send an arrow of love to his spirit, wherever he is, and express our gratitude for his life and his wisdom. Shanti. Today's talk is very interesting from many viewpoints. It will define for us what it means to be a keeper, little k, big K. It will indicate various ways in which we can be a brother's keeper. The word keeper can be seen from various angles. For example, the job title of a leader of his or her group, family, or nation is the keeper of the flame. It falls upon the leader to nourish the heart and soul of the group with which the principles and values of the teaching are there, and to keep the group's labor aligned with those principles and values. There are several references to the word keeper in Agni Yoga, such as doorkeeper, keeper of the gate, light keeper, keeper of lightning, the keeper of dates, the keeper of the 7 gates. And Agni is also called the keeper of the gates. Let me read a few references to the word keeper that you can find from Agni Yoga, the Agni Yoga teachings. In the book itself, titled Agni Yoga Sutra 256, it says this: the keeper of the 7 gates grieved. I give people an endless stream of miracles, but they do not perceive them. I provide new stars, but their light does not alter human thought. I plunge whole countries into the depths of the seas, but human consciousness remains silent. I erect mountains and the teachings of truth, but people do not even turn their heads to the call. I send wars and pestilence, but even terror does not impel people to think. I offer the joy of knowledge, but people make a gruel out of this sacred feast. I have no further signs to turn humanity away from destruction. To the keeper spoke the most exalted. When a builder lays the foundation of a building, does he tell all to everyone who labors on the structure? Does he tell all to everyone who labors on the structure? Some of them will know the given dimensions, but only to a few is disclosed the purpose of the building. Those who dig among the stones of past foundations can hardly comprehend a new one. A builder should not be grieved if there is no understanding among his workers of the real meaning of his plan. He can only assign the tasks appropriately. Thus, as regards the consciousness of people, we shall know that those who cannot understand or hearken will be fit to undertake only the menial work. Let the one who has understood be firm as 100,000 sages, and the signs, like inscriptions, will unfold before him. On Eastern Crossroads, a book written by Helena Rourke, she talks about the Maitreya. The Maitreya is also recognized or referred to as a keeper with a capital K. And this is about the predestined Maitreya. The Lord of Truth answered, Maitri, manifested counselor and keeper. Thou shalt assume my place as the Lord of compassion and labor. Maitreya shall lead the nations towards light, and the arrow of achievement shall bestow the apple of knowledge. It is everyone's job as keepers or stewards of the group to guard the image and reputation of the group, as well as to help manifest the vision of the group. So this makes us all keepers at some level, depending upon our level of consciousness and our ability to live the virtues and principles of life. So for example, let's say that we're the president of our country. Doesn't it fall on our shoulders to want to guard the image and the reputation of the country we are leading? If the president of a country cannot guard the image and reputation of its citizens, then its citizens must stand in that place and do the guarding of the image and protect the reputation of the country. It is like today, there is a huge women's march that's taking place in Washington, D.C. Actually, I don't know if it's just strictly women or both men and women, but one of our own is there in D.C. And I worry a little bit because I've seen some of the videos. There's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people marching. Why? For the cause of the environment, because of climate, needing to protect the climate. That's what it means to be a keeper. So when you look at these videos that are going up on Facebook now, and you look at the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, they want to protect our planet. To protect our planet. They are keepers. The keepers of our planet. So if you have the responsibility, if you are part of a group, then you have the responsibility to guard the image and reputation of that group, no matter what. Even if the leader of that group is unable to protect the image and reputation, you step in as a brother's keeper and protect the image and the reputation of your group. Some keepers watch over us so that we grow and have a happy, healthy life. Others protect us from danger and lead us to success, prosperity, and freedom. Ask yourself, what kind of keeper am I? In other words, what kind of protector are you? The term brother's keeper is a very significant expression. If you emphasize being your brother's keeper, you can unfold and reveal a great practical usefulness, which is hidden within your brothers and sisters. How many of you are godparents? Godparents are keepers too. To their hand is entrusted the newly baptized child. Or if you are a pastor or minister of a marrying couple, you are a keeper, since you are spiritually responsible for that couple and the one who will advise and counsel them. A minister or pastor of the newly married couple is like a godparent to the couple. At the present, due to religious and educational systems, people instead of being their brother's keeper have become ego worshipers rather than their brother's keeper. They worship what? They worship their own interests, even when they pray to God. They want to be successful, prosperous, healthy, happy, informed, and wise individually. I remember one day there was a man that I was dating for some time until I finally woke up to the fact he was dating me for my knowledge. And then he would use that knowledge as his own knowledge in the teaching. It was such a shock, and it was very boring to be with him because after a while it's like, all we talk about is what I know. What about what you know in the teachings? Tell me what you were practicing. Tell me why you love the teaching so much. But it was always question after question after question, picking my brain until I finally woke up. No, where I love to share my knowledge of the teaching. I mean, it is a great choice, so don't hear me wrong. He was using that information to pump up his ego and to fill his own self-interest. And then he went out and began teaching as if he was a knowledgeable teacher. So be careful. Almost everything, for everything, so many people seem to do these days is for their own interest. They do not yet have the key to unlock the secret of prosperity. See, this is the deal. When you study the teaching, the first few years, for most of us, it's a recapitulation. It's coming home again. And we become voracious readers. We can't put our books down. And it's like when I moved from Florida to Arizona, it wasn't furniture that took up so much space. It was all the books. And now I live in a house full of books. And we have books here in the sanctuary. We have no more room for books. But what is this all about? It means, have you read all of those books? And then have you practiced what you learned? That's what's important. If you have only one book in your library, have you practiced every single thing you studied from that book and put it into your life? Then you become knowledgeable in a very real sense. It's not memorizing passages. That is not putting the teachings into operation. It is keeping that passage in your head and using it as a meditative seed thought every single day, such as beauty. Am I increasing beauty in my environment? Am I bringing out the beauty of one's soul when I am with them? Is my relationship with this person and that person and this person and so forth filled with beauty? If it is, then you can teach about beauty because you exemplify what the teaching has to say about beauty. And in that exemplification, you are becoming the gatekeeper or the keeper of beauty in others. You see how that works? The light of a person's knowledge cannot increase unless he shares that light with others, that experience with others. If you want to be virtuous or holy, you must try to make those around you virtuous and holy. Because if you try to be virtuous and holy on your own, the others will soon make you work against your virtues. The secret behind, I'm not going to go into that, just think about it, okay? We don't have time. The secret behind all these concepts is that in giving, we can have more. This is straight from the teaching. In giving, we can have more. And the more we give, the more we have. Here's a story. There was a man who owned an orchard and employed 200 workers. The workers were very poor and lived in straw huts, while the owner of the orchard grew richer and richer. One winter, he left the orchard to enjoy himself at the hot springs, while his workers suffered in the severe cold. When he returned home in the spring, he found that all of his trees had been cut and used as firewood. His house was destroyed, and as you might imagine, all of his employees were gone. His wife said to him, "This is your lesson. You cannot live a rich life among the poor and remain happy." I remember, this is, my story is very, very minimal in comparison, but the feeling was interesting in as much as I was invited to a very wealthy woman's home, very wealthy woman, for counseling. She needed help with her business, in which she had many employees all over the state, and two of them were suing her. And she was in trauma, definite trauma, because of the money it was taking to hire attorneys, and she didn't understand why someone would sue her and why she was having problems with her managers of her different businesses. And so I went to her house and spent maybe 2.5 hours talking to her about right human relations. We looked at her horoscope to see what kind of cycle she was in. And I enjoyed speaking with her because she took notes. And the upshot of that counseling is that the two people that were suing her stopped their lawsuit, and she didn't have to spend so much money, and so on and so forth. At the end of that 2.5-hour session, I was waiting to be paid because I needed to be paid. And she said, "Well, how much do you think this is worth?" And I said, "Gosh, I don't know. You know, just pay me what your heart feels right." So she paid me $10. I know. And as we walked out of her home, she walked into her Lexus and got into her Lexus, and I got into my little Volkswagen. And we both drove off. She went ahead of me, of course. And I couldn't help but think, what a gift she gave to me to see what not to be. Isn't that interesting? I saved this woman thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. We don't want to be stingy like that. We don't. We can save our lives by living for others. Our greatness is conditioned by our ability to give, by our ability to enlighten others, by our ability to love and care for and protect others. The greater the number of people a person nourishes with his or her light and love and beauty and wisdom, the greater that person is. It is only by living in the interest of others and in the interest of one humanity can we meet our divine responsibility. So each of us needs to start with and build upon the idea of how we can become our brother's keeper. how we can contribute to their happiness, their success and prosperity, the health of humanity, through our thoughts and words and actions and through our wisdom. We then become an inspiration for other people. And this is what Daniel Anton was for me. When I went through a cycle of despair and I got an airplane ticket and I flew from Arizona over to New York City, and I walked in the museum and he grabbed hold of me and he said, "Let's talk." And we went into the kitchen and we talked for an hour and he got my inspiration back. And then we walked through the museum and he took me around to show me the various paintings that was painted by Nicholas Rourke. And I walked out of that museum changed. Look at the time this very busy man gave to another person. You know, he was certainly a brother's keeper. There are 3 phases to being our brother's keeper, which are the 3 phases of freedom, according to the teaching. They are 1, only I exist, and all must serve me. In living with such a psychology for a long time, people eventually will realize that in order to better survive in the field of clashing self-interest, they must begin to use the second phase, not the phase that only I exist and all must serve me. The second phase is you and I exist. In this phase, a cycle of negotiations, conferences, and mutual agreements come into being. We talk with one another. People will, however, begin to sense that even in this, there is still something wrong with this philosophy. Because as soon as one party is no longer good for the other hates him and turns his face from him. And they both fall into phase 1. Only I exist. The third phase is the whole exists. Those who see the danger of the second phase try to find paths leading to this third phase, that the whole exists. Do you understand what this means? If humanity, for the most part, cannot respond to the third phase, it will fall on the path and be led toward massive destruction, as occurred in Lemuria and Atlantis, and to so many individual nations during this Aryan civilization. This really, to me, is so simple, such a simple idea, and yet it is so undervalued. Even with esoteric communities, esoteric groups, they can get to phase 2, but phase 3 they're afraid of because they're afraid of competition, that it is a competitive experience. And that leader will become a better leader than me. Or that people in my group will go to their group. Or their group will come here and I'll lose all my followers. This is sad. When these groups all talk about the third phase, the whole exists. Imagine if we could take all of these beautiful spiritual, esoteric communities and work together. It's not that it hasn't been tried, because it has, but inevitably the leadership becomes afraid and say, you've got to follow me. That group over there, you come over here and follow me. That group over there, you follow me, and then the whole exists. But no, that's not the way it works. We are all one. I remember Torkim Saradarian when he was alive, and some of us were talking to him, and we were talking about economic security and financial responsibility. And, some of us were in a difficult place because we had two groups to financially support, the White Mountain group and the AEG group. And so I asked him, I said, what are we supposed to do? And he said, it doesn't make any difference who you give your money to. We are all one. Well, on a practical sense at that moment, but if I give all my money to this group, that group over there, the AEG group, what's going to happen to the group that I am financially and fiscally responsible for? Took me a while to understand it. Fiscal responsibility, financial responsibility has nothing to do with time. Because we are very financially stable. We weren't back then. But because of the love of the leadership, love attracts and meets the need. So, where it took 2 or 3 years for me to understand what he was saying, he gave us a book to publish, his own handwritten manuscript that we put into our book. It was our first book that we ever published. And boy, if that wasn't a grueling experience. See, he wanted us to become prosperous. So it's like the idea, he gave us a fishing pole and taught us how to fish instead of giving us a fish. The whole group learned what it took to publish a book, how to edit a book, how to get that book distributed once it's put together, how to learn how to find the right software to create a book. And to this day, the people that helped to publish that book are now involved with publishing more books, and they're much better books than that first book. It had some typos and things in it, and indexing issues. But look what he did. He set us on the road to the path of prosperity. And now we have our own building. Would we have this building today if we hadn't had that influence of the light and love of that great leader? I think not. Because the light and love of that great leader was an exemplification of the teaching. Now, the teaching says this: if you want to become your brother's keeper, then you must consider and meditate on the following points. 1, as a brother's keeper, you must try by all means to improve yourself and to be an example. Your brother must see that you are noble and honest and clean, that you are emotionally and mentally healthy and sane. Your brother must look at you and say, "Look how intelligent my brother is. My brother works so hard. My brother is so resourceful. My brother is loving and graceful and courageous." 2, unless you are a leader, teacher, or a guardian, never talk about the shortcomings of your brother. 3, never stick your nose into the personal affairs of your brother. His personal affairs belong to him. A brother's keeper does not involve himself with the shortcomings and stupidities of this brother, because he will become contaminated by them. Leave the personal affairs of your brother to his teacher. 4, if your brother wants to learn from you, the first thing you must teach him is to abstain from malice, jealousy, slander, gossip, and treason, which are the most poisonous vipers living within us. This must be taught to your blood brother, your group brother, any brother. 5, teach your brother about the law of karma. 6, teach your brother about the law of reincarnation. Quote from the Bhagavad Gita, it says, "Verily, there was never a time when I was not, nor you, nor these ruler of men, nor shall come a time when we shall cease to be." Number 7, teach your brother how to observe. It is so important for your brother to be able to see things that usually remain unseen by average people. This is one of the rules in group work, esoteric group work. If you are a member of an esoteric spiritual group, you are taught how to observe. If you have a problem child, a troublemaker in that group, and your group members do not observe that troublemaker, it's like one rotten apple spoils the whole barrel of apples. When something like that happens, and I will say to this member or that member, "Do you see what's going on?" They said, "No, you're not an observer." You have to learn how to observe. So teach your brother how to observe. Number 8, teach your brother to respect his parents, other family members, and all those who are around him. When respect is replaced with disrespect, the downfall of the family or society starts. Respect creates love and right human relations. Remember, we're talking about how to be our brother's keeper. These are the rules. These are great rules to live by. Why? Because it leads us to success. Number 9, teach your brother when and how to talk and when to keep silence. Do not be a chatty Cathy. To be a chatty Cathy means you're still ego-oriented. You lost sensitivity to your relationships, to your environment. This is not discipleship. Discipleship is to know when and how to talk and when to be silent. I remember, it's so hard not to go into all these stories, but this is worth repeating because we're nearly out of time. I was in classes, this is many years ago, and there was a young man, tall, handsome, seemingly wise. He never talked in class. And so because of his presence, the way he was always dressed so beautifully, and it was so good to look at, and we all assumed that he had a lot of wisdom and that he was really smart and that he didn't want to do a one-upmanship to the rest of us, right? Then I got to know him. He had a childish mind. He wasn't absorbing anything that happened in class, and the reason he didn't talk, because he had nothing to offer. Can you imagine? Here we all thought, this is such an impressive guy. So you see, keeping silence wasn't the golden rule. He just kept silent because he had nothing to say. And sometimes people do that. They're intimidated, they're scared to speak up. See, that's not silence. True silence is keeping your thoughts still as well. This is such a delicate issue that we must be very careful to save our brother and cultivate control, respect, discrimination, and common sense in him without building patterns of inhibition of his being. Most people talk to emphasize their individuality, to show off, or to gain recognition. It is an interesting observation that people who do not have self-interest often keep silent. Number 10, teach your brother to study and observe the lives of healthy and happy people. Studying such people increases images of health and happiness in his consciousness, which controls the process of distribution of the energies in his system. And the last one, number 11, speak to your brother about the glorious future, about those who are planning and working toward building a glorious future for mankind. These 11 rules apply not only to groups and nations, but to individuals as well. Only by being our brother's keeper can the brotherhood of humanity be established in this world. You can imagine my anticipation of listening to what our co-worker is going to bring back with her from her experiences in being in Washington, D.C. She's working for the future of humanity and being among thousands and thousands and thousands of people. She will have a story or two to share with us, I'm sure. So that's it. Are we our brother's keeper?